I just wanted to say how much, first of all, how much I appreciate the fact that there are people that are listening. But also, an important thing is I'm just really hopeful, and I am actually thinking that we're going to do really well this year in 2023. And here's sort of my thought process. I watched this movie, Racer. It's about Jesse Owens. It's a Netflix movie, and I watched it with my kids yesterday, with my family yesterday, and it was remarkable. So the first thing is Jesse Owens. So for those of you who don't know who that was, um, he was the guy that won in the Berlin Olympics in 1938, the American, an African American or Black American that ran in four different races, got four different gold medals, and um, it was a big thing because this was just before basically the fall of Germany, um, when a whole bunch of atrocities were going to happen, and they were on the process of happening. And when I was watching it, they did such a fantastic job of representing the world. It was just so well done in representing the world and what was going on. It was extremely accurate with a lot of the details. If you watch it online, you can actually watch some of the clips from the Olympics, the actual Olympics. Um, and it is to the T, other than maybe some of the storytelling that goes on, but to the T in terms of what it looked like. And when you're watching it, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is like today. A lot of this stuff is still happening today. And, it doesn't feel good, right? Like there's a lot of just a lot of awfulness, right? And a lot of like, oh my God, the world is not great. Um, but but here's the thing that I was reflecting on. And so Jesse Owens, at the end, you find out this guy is amazing, right? Like just a standout person, in terms of, yeah, he was a complicated figure, right? But at the same time, still amazing as a human being in terms of what the possibility, um, the gifts that was given to him. And here, at the end of it, he ends up being a janitor. Um, and this is the story, right, of just race relations that are happening, all around the world. He ends up That's the only job he can get. They did a really good job, of sort of showing this. And what's what's interesting, right? Like part of me is like, oh, nothing is changed, but on the other part of me, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, man, we're worlds away from some of the shit that happened, um, from many years ago. And we've got a lot of institutions. Doesn't mean that those institutions can't fall apart, right? Like that was the surprising thing with Germany at the time, and people sort of we demonize, that world, what was happening, as like, oh, they didn't know any better. No, it was a complete opposite, right? Like that's the thing that's shocking, and that's the thing that is like just like, oh my gosh, um, you know, and this is where they showed it so well. They were actually, on the precipice of creating this sort of new way of living that a lot of people were buying into, right? Like they were the cutting edge, right? And they were showing just how, um, real this actually was in the movie. Um, and so, you know, this is the thing, right? We're miles away from a lot of these things, but at the same time, everything is tipping, and institutions can fall, in which we've seen institutions that have been very important in the last few years fall, um, in terms of women's rights and various different things like that. But at the same time, right? We're miles away. If you reflect on where we've come from and you think, man, there was a lot of work that has happened. And yeah, we've had some steps back. But in general, I would say that the world is doing far better today than we were in 1938. And I want you to sort of reflect on that as you go about the year. In that, in the given year, um, I do have high hopes, but some crazy thing might happen, like another pandemic or global financial crisis or whatever. Like some big crazy thing might happen in a year, but we're not looking. You can't keep your eyes sort of focused on the year. You got to focus on on what's going to happen over the course of many, 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 many years. So my expectation is not, am I going to, and I'm positive about this year, as every year, am I going to, make an imprint today? And does my imprint actually matter today? And in this year, no. It's not going to matter that much. It's going to be a little just tiny imprint. But am I going to try to make a difference over the course of 30, 40, 50 years where my world, when I look back, so when in 2060, and I look back at where we were today, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, God, what happened? Right? Like, what were they all thinking at that point? Right? And I want everybody to sort of think about that. With a lot of the things we do, we have such a short, narrow mindset, and we worry about this sort of moments in time. But in reality, the important things that are happening are they happen over decades, and they're hard to do, right? So, some of the sort of steps back that many of us would sort of, not everybody, right, but many of us would consider have been step backs in terms of when the rulings, for example, in the Supreme Court are going to take a lot of time and effort to rebuild. But at the same time, I think rebuilding some of these things will create ways for us to reshape them for the better and actually have a longer term longevity because we know how important these things actually are. And I think that's where we have to take a step back and we got to look and say, hey, long run trends over the course of many, many decades, almost every indicator, except for America's going through some weird crap. But many indicators around the world are almost all positive of the things that you want, right? We live in a safer society. Violent crimes have been historically they're lower than they ever have been. Human rights have increased, and a lot of it has been because of these institution buildings efforts in response to the atrocities that happened during. But not only these institutions that we've done and that we've added have been really important, um, but I think, my faith in a lot of institutions are not strong. Um, in the sense that there are corrupt actors that want to sort of take advantage of these. But I think that there are technologies in play now that have really changed things, that we don't need to rely on social contracts between individuals. And we can sort of do things, circumvent a lot of this stuff of where things can actually sort of not work, right? And the more that there are, so there's just as many bad actors as good actors, but I think if good actors in this world are sort of focusing on doing the good thing and sort of moving us forward incrementally and reminding us that we're doing okay, I think, and reminding us and sort of working at things that are sort of helpful and doing, just generally good stuff, over time, I think we're making progress. I think good things are happening. And I want to remind you of all of those things. And you might see things this year. It's gonna, there's probably things that will pop up that will sort of shake you to the core, and you're like, but I want to remind you, over the long run, to be optimistic, to sort of look at the future and say, actually, things have been doing really well, and we're doing okay, and we have a lot of progress. If you look at the number of people that are in sheer poverty and really, really desperate, and the number of sort of child deaths or infant deaths, if you look at like indicators like that, it is so positive today compared to even 20 years ago. I want to remind everybody that, human potential, we're still really doing well. And things might change a lot, but we're still doing really, really well. And I want everybody to sort of reflect on that and think, like, despite what you hear on the news, despite the sort of negativity that your aunt might have, or, all of these kind of things that you're listening to, if you take a step back and you look at it and you say, wait a minute, we're actually doing phenomenally well. I think there's nothing but hope that we have. And I'm going to tell you that there might be bad actors that destroy a lot of stuff and hurt a lot of people. But I think we as human species, man, we're pretty smart, and we learn a lot of stuff. We know what it means to live. A lot of us know what it means to live in peace. A lot of us know what it means to do good things. I think that's going to win out in the end. You can't destroy hope. You can't destroy that feeling that you have when you're safe. You just can't destroy that in the long run. I mean, in the short run, you can make us feel pretty awful. But in the long run, there's still going to be us that are hoping for good things. The libraries of Alexandria can burn down, but over the course of many centuries, we can do a lot of good, and we can come back and rebuild things and do some amazing things. So my expectations for 2023, and I know that this is a bit of a long rant, my expectations for 2024 and going forward is always the same. I am optimistic. I think good things are going to happen. A lot of bad things are going to happen, but a lot of good things are going to happen, that we will make incremental, slow progress towards doing good things and making sure that we live in a safer, happier, healthier place. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.